Fernando Mendoza, we know he won't be at the draft coming up at the end of the month, but we do now know who will. And how can that affect the silver and black? That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for April 10th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. We're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. You can find him on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we have the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. As we normally do, we'll close out the show hearing from you. Segment number 3, calls, texts, a lot of great feedback, a lot of different subjects that we're talking about here on the show. Not only will it close out the show, but we'll close out the week hearing from you. Segment number 2, take a little bit of a twist when it comes to the NFL draft. We know where the Raiders are selected in round number 1. Pick number 1. But could they have another selection coming up in round number 1 on draft day? What does that mean? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and it really just has to do all things NFL draft. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. And as we know, Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall pick, the Raiders franchise quarterback to be, will not be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Instead, he'll be with his family in Miami. We've had discussions about that. You know, that was a choice of his, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. As of late, there hasn't been as many prospects that have been going to the draft and actually been in the green room. Last year, I think it was only, I want to say maybe 9 or 10. I know one year it got down to 13. This year there's going to be 16. We found this out on Thursday. As a matter of fact, the NFL sent out the email, sent out a few little notes and nuggets about the NFL draft, but they also sent out the 16 players that have been confirmed to be in the green room coming up on April 23rd. And hopefully they all get selected in the first round. That's the goal. What they always do is try to find the guys that they know they have, at least they have a really good feeling, are going to go in the first round. So there are none of those moments where a guy's sitting there first round and the camera keeps flashing to him and he's waiting, he's looking at his phone, his family's sitting there trying to encourage him. Like, they try not to have those moments. Obviously, we all remember the Aaron Rodgers moment. We probably all remember the Johnny Manziel moment. Just because Geno Smith was with the Raiders last, remember the Geno Smith moment where he lasted till day 2. There's been plenty of those type of situations, but the NFL tries its best to make sure that the guys that are going to be there, that they invite to the draft, the guys that are going to be in the green room, are going to get selected in the first round. So again, 16 guys confirmed will be there in Pittsburgh on April 23rd. I'll go through them really quickly. David Bailey, linebacker out of Texas Tech. Ruben Jr., defensive end out of Miami. Mansour Delane, the defensive back out of LSU. Caleb Downs, defensive back out of Ohio State. Keldrick Falk, defensive end out of Auburn. Colton Hood, defensive back out of Tennessee. Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. Francis Maui-Noah, offensive lineman out of Miami. Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Caden Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama. Arvell Reese, linebacker from Ohio State. Ty Simpson, quarterback from Alabama. Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State. Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State. Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State. So those are the 16 guys that will be represented for sure coming up in the green room April 23rd in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. As I let it be known multiple times, I'll definitely be there all week long, all week strong. So definitely look forward to talking to a handful of those guys. Look forward to talking to some of the analysts as well. And it's funny just kind of looking up and down the list of guys that, you know, there's certain ones that you know are going to be gone quickly. Jeremiah Love, no-brainer. Mekhi Lemon, no-brainer. Caleb Downs, no-brainer. You know, Mansour Delane, those guys. Ruben Bain Jr., all those guys. Carnell Tate, all those guys are going to go very quickly as far as I'm concerned. Ty Simpson, pretty interesting. There's no guaranteeing that he's going to be a first-round quarterback, so interesting to see that he's accepted the invite to Pittsburgh in the green room. So we'll see if there's a team. Maybe the NFL has an idea already that there's a team that could do just like the Giants did last year and trade back up into the back end of round 1 and get them. And again, when there's the quarterback, you know that they're going to make a run on quarterback. So there's a good shot that Ty Simpson will be a first-round quarterback. But we've had a lot of back and forth on who Ty Simpson is and who he's not. And it looks like the NFL believes and he believes he's a first-round quarterback. So he'll be there. That's one to pay attention to. Colton Hood, the defensive back from Tennessee, that's another one that to pay attention to. He's a fringe late first-round guy, second-round guy. I would say that there's one more that I noticed that Caden McDonald. He's the guy that I like a lot, defensive tackle at Ohio State. He's a guy that I believe is a first-round pick, but I'm not an NFL draft analyst. And so far, most of the people that I've talked to, interviewed, had them on my show, one place or the other, whether it's the radio show, this show, or whatever the case may be, all kind of feel like Caden McDonald is a second-round pick. So there's a couple guys there that could be, fringe guys, could be guys coming up at the end of the round one that end up getting selected. A couple of fun facts here in segment number one that has to do with the guys that are going to be there in the green room. 3 colleges represented, right? Ohio State, they have 5 players. 5 players going to be in the green room. Alabama has 2 and Miami has 2. They're all going to have those multiple players on site. The Big Ten leads all conferences with 6 prospects confirmed to attend, followed by the SEC with 5, the ACC with 2, and the Big 12 with 2. And the Independent has 1 as well. And the final little nugget I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, then we'll kind of get into some of those guys and some other potential draft prospects coming up in segment number 2, the time changes. Remember how long round 1 is? I mean, man, let's see, it's going to start at 5 p.m. Pacific time, so 8 o'clock Eastern time. And, man, that thing normally we don't get out of there until after midnight on day 1. So they're trying to shorten it up just a little bit. Round 1 now will have 8 minutes per selection. So it used to be, 10 minutes in between each selection. And for some reason, there's no reason when the draft opens up, when Roger Goodell says the Raiders are now on the clock, there's no reason for them to take the whole 8 minutes. But the NFL will encourage them to take the whole 8 minutes, right? But everyone knows look, the draft could really start at pick number 2. We all know where they're going at pick number 1. But they're going to try to exhaust, and I'm not saying the Raiders, I'm saying the NFL is going to try to exhaust as many minutes as possible, try to get as much commercial time in as possible. So 8 minutes per selection in round number 1. Round number 2, 7 minutes per selection. Round number 3 through 6, including the compensatory picks, 5 minutes per selection. And this is when it really gets cooking, right? On day 3, that's when it's like bing, 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 bing. Well, really, round 3 is on day 2. But on day 3, that's when all of a sudden, man, the guys are breaking down one prospect, and they're already 2 or 3, 4 picks down the road. So rounds 3 through 6, including the compensatory picks, 5 minutes per selection. And then round 7, including compensatory picks, 4 minutes per selection. So they're trying to speed it up a little bit. I tell the story all the time. I left Green Bay last year on Saturday morning, bright and early. I flew all the way back to Las Vegas. I went and got my hair cut. I went to the barbershop, or I went to the car wash, got my car washed, got back to the house, turned on the draft, and Shedeur still wasn't drafted, right? All that time, I got up super early, flew all the way back to Vegas, and Shedeur still wasn't drafted late in the 5th round. And so they're trying to speed this thing up just a little bit. So 8 minutes per selection on day 1, 7 minutes for round 2, 5 for round 3 through 6, and then 4 for round 7. But I mentioned a handful of players. I mentioned a few that could be in the green room, that could find themselves there on day 2. But are there any players that could find themselves coming up at the tail end of round number 1 that the Raiders may be interested in? What does any of that mean? I'll explain it coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is TurboTax. You know, it's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers. Emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's a relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into a conversation about the tail end of round number 1 and what the Raiders could possibly do and what you think the Raiders should do if they, in fact, see a player dropping, whether that's a player in the green room or just a really good prospect that can really help improve their team. I'll tell you what all that means after I remind you about the Everydayer Club. For ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with all the listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast, all you got to do is tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedonraiders.supercast.com. So where this came from is there's a handful of teams in the first round of the draft that have multiple picks. including the Miami Dolphins. And so I've been doing this ultimate mock draft on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920. So at pick number 11, I had to have someone representing the Miami Dolphins. So I had Travis Wingfield on, who actually works for the Dolphins right now, does a really good show there. Used to be part of the Locked On family, used to host the Locked On Dolphins show. Matter of fact, we actually hosted a couple shows together. Really good dude, very talented, really appreciate him at all times. So I had him make the pick at number 11 on our mock draft for the Dolphins. But I also asked him about the second pick that they have in round number 1, which is pick number 30. And this is what he said when I asked about that pick.
Yeah, I think that 30th pick is going to be for sale, and especially if a quarterback like Ty Simpson lasts that long, right? Because we always see teams want to get back into the back end of that first round and secure that fifth round option for the quarterback if they can do it. And I think, the Dolphins would be in prime position to possibly add like a 2 next year, or maybe even an additional second round pick this year, in a spot where that's the portion of the draft where I think there's a pretty good spread in terms of players that are kind of clumped together compared to maybe the 11th pick, where you're at the tail end of the top end of prospects in the draft. So I would be shocked. And John Eric Sullivan said as much back at the scouting combine. I would be shocked if they moved up at any point in the draft. I don't think they're in a position to sell off picks right now. They have to get younger and they have to get cheaper. But I think going back and accumulating more picks, maybe even for next year, would be in their wheelhouse.
So there's Travis Wingfield, and he's saying that the Dolphins, he believes, are very interested in getting out of that spot, number 30 overall. And I've talked about the tail end of round number 1 for a while, that I feel like that's a sweet spot. And when I mean the tail end of round number 1, I'm talking 23 to 32. I feel like that's when a lot of teams could see some movement, whether you're at the very back end, like you're picking at 32, like Seattle, and you want to move up to, say, 23 or 24, you can make that happen. Or if you're a team like the Raiders who are picking at 36 and might want to make a move to, say, 30 or 31 or 32, if they see a player, and only if they see a player who is an impact player. Like, you don't just move up just to move up, just for the sake of saying, hey, I got 2 first-round picks. No, you get a guy that you say, hey, man, I didn't expect to see that guy sliding. Here he is. Now let's go make a move for him. So I threw the question out there and had some fun with it on my radio show on Thursday, had it out on social media on Thursday, thought it was a lot of fun, intriguing little conversation. And again, it's all things NFL draft, right? We're a couple weeks away now from the start of the draft, so why not, right? Just jump into it, have some fun with it. And I mentioned all the players that are going to be there in the green room, and I mentioned a couple that I thought, well, those are intriguing prospects, like Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I talked to Matt Miller the other day on the big conference call, the pre-draft conference call that he did, and I said, hey, man, I saw that you had him dropping to 38 to the Texans, and he said, Q, I think he's a second-round guy. Well, Caden McDonald's going to be in the green room there in Pittsburgh. So is he a second-round guy? Is he a first-round guy, right? Obviously, by him being there, he or the NFL or both believes he's a first-round guy. But what if he ends up sliding to number 30 and the Dolphins are on the clock? Should the Raiders make a call and say, hey, we're at 36. We'd like to move up to 30. Yeah, that's giving up, quite a bit of draft capital to go up there. But if that guy is that difference maker, and he was a heck of a player last year at Ohio State, heck of a player. I mean, you want to talk about production and a big defensive tackle, nose tackle. A lot of people believe he's the best one in the class. There's others that have Peter Woods as the number 1 guy, but Caden McDonald's right behind him. That's a guy that I would definitely be intrigued by. Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver. I talked about him quite a bit from Indiana. I think he's a mid-round guy, like in the teens, 16, 17, 18 mark. But if all of a sudden he's there at 28, 29, and then they get to 30 and Omar Cooper Jr. is still on the board, I would definitely from the Raiders pick up the phone. If I'm John Spytek, I'm picking up the phone immediately. Knowing that you already have Fernando Mendoza in the building, why not go and get his college teammate in Omar Cooper Jr., a guy that I believe still has room to grow. Like, he hasn't hit his ceiling when it comes to being a wide receiver yet. He still is growing. That's a guy I'd be very intrigued by, Omar Cooper Jr. And really, I think that those are the 2 guys that would interest me the most, that I think are first-round guys that could be possibly sliding to the second round. There's other guys I'm interested in, like Colton Hood, the cornerback from Tennessee. He's also going to be in the green room. He's a fringe first, second-round pick, somewhere around that range, so he might be available on day 2. Zachariah Branch, I've talked about him so much. I would love to see the Raiders get him and land him, but he honestly, in my opinion, is probably a mid-second round guy, early third-round pick, so they don't have to trade in to the first round. I had a couple guys call my radio show and was like, yeah, get Zachariah Branch at the tail end of round 1. I don't think they have to. If they want to get him, they could wait till 36. I think he'll be there, right? And again, I would love to see Zachariah Branch in the silver and black. I think he is such a dynamic weapon, not only in the wide receiver offensive game, but also in the special teams game. Kick return, punt return, I think he could do all of that. and be that real, true weapon that the Raiders have not had for many, many moons. So, yeah, Zachariah Branch would be one that interests me, but he's not a first-round guy. So you don't have to worry about trading up to 30 for him. Maybe, if anything, you're trading up from the third round to the back end of the second round to go get him. That's a possibility. C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia, I think he's a second-round guy, but we know the linebackers. Anthony Hill Jr. is another guy. He's a second to third-round linebacker. So those are guys that I'm interested in, but I feel like all those guys outside of Caden McDonald and Omar Cooper Jr. are all second-round guys, right? I mean, so those are the two that I would have interest in for the Raiders to go up and make a move. Again, because you don't want to just make a move just to make a move. Like, for example, when Dave Ziegler was the GM, and that's when Big Michael Mayer was dropping. Remember, he was ranked basically the number one tight end, if not number one tight end, second tight end. And he was dropping. And I remember seeing, like, man, this guy's still there. And I remember Dave Ziegler saying he thought about trading into the back end of round one to go in and getting him, but the price of doing business was too high, so he didn't. And then he traded up in round two, to go get Big Mike. Now, obviously, it hasn't worked out the way that any of us expected for Michael Mayer, but that's one of those examples of, is he a first-round pick? Is he a second-round pick? You know, do you give up the extra capital to go get him, or do you just hope and wait that, 4 picks into round number 2, the guy that you're looking at, say Omar Cooper Jr.? Like, I really, if everyone goes to bed on Thursday night and Omar Cooper Jr. still hasn't been selected, whoever's picking at 32 or 33, I should say, is going to be the ones that the Jets. Matter of fact, the Jets are picking at 33. They're getting him immediately, and if they're not getting him, somebody's trading up to go get him. Right? Because he's not going to last long. I would be shocked if he makes it out of day one. So that's why a guy like him I'd definitely be interested in. And again, I think with Caden McDonald, it's really pick your flavor. Who you're listening to? How do you value these guys? Is he a guy that you look at as a day one guy, or is he a guy that you feel like you really truly can get in round number 2? Like I said, Matt Miller had him going number 38 overall. And he told me straight up. Matter of fact, I'll let you hear it yourself. Here's Matt Miller when I asked him about Caden McDonald dropping to number 2. Check it out. I noticed that Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State, you had him 38 overall to the Houston Texans by way of the Washington Commanders. That's round 2. Why did you see him following to round 2?
Yeah, so I see him as a round 2 player. I mean, there's a lot of upside there. He had a lot of production for a nose tackle, but I do think at least at where he's at right now, he is a little bit scheme specific. So finding the scheme that would be a fit for him, where he's primarily going to be a nose, maybe a little bit of a one tech, finding those teams that were a fit for him. I toyed around with having him go earlier, maybe going to the Raiders top round 2. But at the end of the day, it's like, Houston right there, such a good fit for what he does. And, I know D'Amico Ryans would love to have somebody just eating up space and keeping things clean for his linebackers.
So there is Matt Miller saying, Q, I thought he was a second-round guy. I didn't think he was a first-round guy. So maybe if he's there at 36 and the Raiders say, hey, we want to dedicate ourselves to this 3-4, we need to have another big ugly in the middle of that defensive line, let's go get that guy. Maybe they wouldn't have to move up. But very intriguing to know that the Dolphins at number 30 are very interested, most likely will be very, very interested in trading back. Could there be a player, whether a guy in the green room or just anyone that you see happen to drop, could he be the guy that you think the Raiders need to go make a move for? Of course, we'll get that feedback from you at 707-654-4693. Would love to get your thoughts. Those are a couple guys that I had, Caden McDonald and Omar Cooper Jr. But what says you? As a matter of fact, we'll hear from you as we close out the show. Again, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, it's a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And I got a stat for you that says it all. In the minute or so that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Again, all listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support the show. Let them know you heard it here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? It's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. You have that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. 707-654-4693. Before we get into that, though, I do want to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. We'll start out with a call from Jared in Tennessee. He's calling about a wide receiver that he heard mentioned on the show on Thursday, and he has something to say about him. Here he is, Jared in Tennessee.
Thank you. It's Jared from the 931 here in Tennessee. Just calling in about a call from yesterday about Ted Hurst coming out of Georgia State. I'm a Vanderbilt fan, so I got to see him play Vandy the last 2 years, and I got to say, I think the guy has a lot of makings to be our number one receiver and for years to come in Vegas. Just want to get your thoughts on that. What would if he'd warrant like a third-round pick for that guy? But as always, thanks for everything you do. You and Ari, y'all are my first listen every day, so go Raiders. Bye.
Jared, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Ted Hurst, Georgia State. He's really looked at as the third-round pick. He had a big 2025, went over 1,000 yards, had over 70 catches, 6 touchdowns. Big problem with him, 7 drops. So he's a guy that I kind of put him in that category of concentration drops, right? That guy that is ready to make that big play, the guy that's ready to run before he actually secures the ball. Can't do that in the NFL, right? So that's something to be concerned about. But, again, a guy that if you can get in the third round, he could be a guy that you really develop. Matter of fact, Dane Brugler, who's got the beast out right now, well, I'll talk to him next week on my radio show. He actually said Hurst faces a steep learning curve versus NFL press and coverage traffic. His physical traits and ball tracking skills, especially as a downfield target, are exciting. He's a developmental X or Z receiver with down-the-road starting upside. So there's something there for sure. And if you're going to invest a third-round pick on him, you're going to want to, really help bring him along. But then you remember that just a year ago, you went and drafted Dante Thornton Jr., who has similar traits. Now, he's not a guy that I think is ever going to catch 70-plus catches and go over 1,000 yards. But what he'll do is he'll get some big catches. He'll make 45, 50 catches, but they'll all be for 20-plus yards, right? He's that guy, that downfield threat. So I don't know if you want to take on multiple, projects at the wide receiver position. You don't want to really do that. You want to get a guy, if you're looking for that true, X wide receiver, you're looking for that guy that's the sure hands, the guy that's going to get you those first downs, the guy that's going to be the go-to for your starting quarterback. So, Jared, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Jeremy in Sacramento. Says, Q, it's Jeremy from Sac. Hear me out here. I love when people start it out. Hear me out. It's like, I know you're not going to like this, but hear me out. So anyway, he says, I've become all in on trading back into the first for safety Dylan Thineman from Oregon. Ball hawk, can hit, good leader in college. Imagine leaving round 1 with your quarterback and a game changer on the back end. Reason why I'd feel comfortable giving up picks to make this happen. Half of our draft class last year hardly played. Pegues could very well be the nose tackle we keep saying we need. Besh could be wide receiver 1. Offensive line problems may be fixed by coaching. We were aggressive in free agency. Let's be aggressive in the draft. We need a true alpha in the secondary and put Palomar back as our third safety. Go Raiders. That's from Jeremy in Sacramento. Look, if you don't tempt me at a good time, right? If you're going to tell me that you're going to go and make a move for a ball hawking safety, a guy that can make plays, a guy that could be that game changer that you're talking about, I'm good with that because I've said it many times. The Raiders haven't had that guy. They have not consistently had the guy that other teams want to keep the ball away from. Like they don't want to go after that guy because he has a chance to go the other way. Normally I'm talking about the cornerback position, but I'll definitely keep that with the safeties as well. That's why I've been so high on A.J. Halsey from LSU because he does exactly what you're talking about with Thineman. Right? And so if they decide that guy is the difference maker and they don't want to wait for a guy like Halsey, maybe to get him in the second or whatever the case may be, then maybe that's the way to go. But it's funny, it goes with the theme that we've been talking about in segment number 2 about potentially trading up in the back end. So I know where you'd go at pick number 30 if available. Jeremy, thanks so much for that text. Really good stuff, man. It's good to hear from you. Up next, got a call from Patrick from Fresno. He's talking about Kirk Cousins and everything that he heard from Cousins on the show that we had on Thursday and from many others. Here he is, Patrick in Fresno.
Q, Ari, hey, I just wanted to chime in. I heard the Kirk Cousins interviews and everything you had on the show today on the lockdown. Hey, Q, man, I just wanted to say I don't know if it's just a hunch, but just kind of run with me with this for a minute. Kirk Cousins is very familiar with Clint Kubiak's system, and we know what Clint Kubiak and any good offensive-minded coach can do for quarterbacks and to put players in position to succeed. I know this might be a little premature, Q, But I just got a strong feeling that Kirk Cousins is going to have a pretty good year. And kind of back to the players to point to prove, I think Kirk Cousins is going to prove to the NFL, and he knows that he's a one-year deal. I think he's going to ball out in this system. I just wouldn't be surprised, Raider Nation. I hate to see it, but Mendoza may not see the football field this year, only on preseason. And that'll be a good thing. I think Kirk Cousins can easily get us nine wins. And how do you pull him out at that point? I just hope you kind of touch on that scenario maybe on the show. What if Kirk Cousins does ball out? Then what? We'll have to figure that out. It'd be good news for us, Raider Nation. But it might be a true scenario. I mean, this dude, he's been a slanger for a while. Just throwing that out there, Q. Hey, love the show. Keep it going. I love that squad show. I listen to that twice a week, and just keep doing what you're doing, baby. We're here to support you, man. Raider Nation. This is Patrick from Fresno. I'm out.
Patrick, representing the 559, man. Definitely appreciate you. Thanks for the call. And, yeah, I mean, look, if things go well, like this, it's a good problem to have. Let's put it like that. If things go really well and Kirk Cousins happens to be in, and the Raiders are playing at a really high level, there is no reason to go to the bench and bring in your rookie quarterback. You just go ahead and let him ride it out. If they're winning games, then what are we talking about, right? I mean, if they're literally winning games with Kirk Cousins, then you let Kirk Cousins keep winning games, right? You have a 4-year contract with Fernando Mendoza with a 5th-year option. Now, I know no Raider fan wants to sit there and see him miss the entire season, but if he misses the entire season, let's just have fun with it. If he misses the entire season because the Raiders are winning, is that not fun? Is that not great? Is that not cool? Is that not something that none of us are used to? This is a team that's won 7 games the last 2 seasons combined. If they're sitting there at 8 wins and 9 wins and Kirk Cousins is cooking, hey, man, I'm going to say cook on. Keep on cooking, brother, right? There'll be plenty of time for Mendoza. Right now, it's your time. Go ahead and especially for $1.3 million this year, yeah, come on. And then, of course, he's going to make the $10 million next year, so $11.3 million total. Yeah, absolutely. That's not even a problem. If he's playing well and they're winning, you let him keep playing well and them keep winning. It's as simple as that. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Twig in North Carolina. I love that name. Hey, Q, it's Twig in North Carolina. I did a 4-round mock draft, and I came with Mendoza at 1, Lee Hunter in the 2nd, wide receiver Skylar Bell in the 3rd, and in the 4th, I got cornerback Hezekiah Massis from Cal, offensive tackle Austin Barber, and running back Kalen Black from Indiana. Full disclosure, it was my first draft today, but I did about a dozen a couple weeks ago. One thing I noticed is that the quality of defensive tackle and wide receivers fall off really early in the 3rd round, meaning if you really want cornerback, safety, linebacker, or offensive lineman early, you aren't likely to get a number 1 wide receiver or starting defensive tackle in round 4. I think SpyTech should think about trading the 2nd-round pick to get an extra 2nd or 3rd-round pick since we have so many needs. What do you think? Thanks to you and Ari for making the offseason fun. Go Raiders. That's Twig in North Carolina. And look, that goes against everything that we were saying in segment 2 about trading up. You're talking about trading back. And that could be a way that John SpyTech approaches this. Remember, last year he went into the draft with 8 draft picks and ended up with 11. So he has a tendency of trading back to collect more capital. And that very well could be. And it's funny, when I did all the mock drafts as well, I did notice that the quality of the wide receiver and the number 1 potential definitely wasn't there after my 2nd pick. And I kept trying to, do the draft over to get certain players that I really like AJ Halsey and McDonald, Caden McDonald and Zachariah Branch. And somehow, some way I kept coming up short. Every single time I went to get one of those guys, it was like the very next pick or the pick right before mine, where that guy was taken. But I like your draft that you came up with. Mendoza, obviously, Lee Hunter, Skylar Bell, really good wide receiver, Hezekiah Massis, lots of love for him. Barber, the offensive lineman, and Kalen Black, running back. I think you did really well. Right? I don't know what your overall grade was. I like the fact that you said you did a dozen of them a couple weeks ago. You can't help it, right? Just can't help it. There's so many options there, and it's such a fun activity. You can't do it just one time. But thanks for the text. Definitely appreciate it. We'll close things out with a call from 305 Key. He's calling to talk about the draft and what he feels like the Raiders could be doing following round 1. Here he is, 305 Key.
Hey, what's up, 305 Key? What's up, Q? Oh, man. Draft time. Hey, check this out. So, we're all hyped. We're looking forward to this draft. Obviously, I can't wait till it gets here. Everybody is trying to figure out what is Vegas doing? What are the Raiders doing for, second, third, and so on, right? And I'm one to think that Spytek has generally kept the poker face. He doesn't like to play his hand or show his hand. He doesn't like to show what he's doing. Any interview we can take up questions that he's been asked. He gives that, I call it politician answer, where he's not gonna show where he's leaning, right? It's gonna be even keel. And looking at these top 30 visits, we brought in 9 wide receivers. That's accurate. I think I counted 9. 9. So to me, that is a bat signal that Vegas is looking for a wide receiver, right? They're going to pick a wide receiver, which could very well be true, right? And then part of me says, we just drafted Besh and Thornton. We have no clue really what we have in them. Tucker's on his last deal. We signed Naylor. So are we really looking for a receiver? Now, I get it. It's a need, right? But it's also a question mark as to what the first year guys going into their second year are bringing to the table. So would it be wild to think that Spytek might be playing chess and saying, hey, look, everybody, Vegas is looking for a receiver. So if you want a receiver, you got to get in front of us, which would then allow another position group to drop. Like defensive tackle, like maybe one of those safeties, who knows, maybe an offensive lineman. I don't know, but what do you think? You think he could be trying to play the game like, hey, look, we're interested in a receiver, so everybody's going to know Vegas is going to pick one. So if you want one of these top guys or you want one of these guys, you're going to have to trade up in front of them. And then that would allow some of these other positional players to drop to us. Just a thought. Interesting. All right, can't wait for the draft. Let's go, baby. Just win. Just win, baby.
What's up, my man? Appreciate the call. Chess, not checkers, when it comes to the way John Spytek is moving. And, there's always some misdirection in the offseason. Teams are always going to have misdirection, right? They're always going to try to show one thing, and they're leaning another. And, I remember when the Raiders were hot after, Cam Miller last year, and they didn't even show him any attention. Or was that Cam Miller, or was that the other guy from the FBS? Now I forgot his name, but it was the 2 FBS guys. So I think it was the other guy. It wasn't Cam Miller, but they never showed him any attention whatsoever because they didn't want anybody to know, what they were looking at or if they had any interest in him at all. Teams do that. Sometimes, teams will like the Browns. They usually draft all the guys, from the top 30 visits. They bring a bunch of guys in for their top 30 visits. Normally all their picks come from that group of guys. There's been times the Raiders have had top 30 picks and they've never selected any of those guys. So it's really hard to tell. I do believe wide receiver will be addressed in this upcoming draft. Just don't know how early John Spytek's going to do that. But I definitely believe they'll come away with this draft with a wide receiver, a running back. I believe they're going to come away with a kicker, whether that's drafted or undrafted free agent, whatever the case may be. I do believe all those positions will definitely be addressed. That's for sure. Thanks so much for the call. It's always great to hear from you. Got a text from Danny and Salinas. We'll get that tomorrow, or not tomorrow, on Saturday, I should say. We'll get all your calls and texts. We'll see what happens over the course of the weekend, come up with as much news and notes as possible, and we keep this bad boy rolling as we're getting closer and closer and closer to the start of the NFL draft coming up on April 23rd. So until Monday, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, have a great weekend, and as always, just win, baby.